Hey guys, Luke here. So in this video we're going to talk about buying your very first kite setup. So this will be done in two parts. This is part one, and in this video we're going to talk about the basic overview. We're going to talk about the equipment that you need, picking a kite brand, picking a kite type, and also picking a kite size. So first off, let's talk about the equipment that you need. As you can see, we've got kitesurfing kites, so you need a kite, leading edge inflatable. That's great for learning how to kite and getting into the sport. Also, you can see I've got my harness around my waist. This is how we can attach ourselves to the kite. Kite leash, a control bar. This is how we steer the kite, bar and lines. We've got the kite pump to inflate it, the bag that the kite came in. Also, two different types of boards here. So we've got a twin tip. This is more of a wakeboard style riding with foot straps, and we've got a strapless board or a surfboard directional that you might use for wave riding or for strapless riding. So now let's talk about the kite models, different kite shapes that you might be looking for. Different kite shapes play a huge role in the way that the kite behaves and performs. Basically, they sort of range from a bow kite, which is more stable and sort of slower moving, slower steering, all the way to a sea kite, which is sort of faster turning, more powerful, higher jumps. Most of the kites on the market today are in the middle of them. They're deltas or hybrid kites, and they're sort of, you know, a combination of them, and they might be closer to a bow kite or they might be closer to a sea kite. As you can see, we've got two different kite shapes here. This is the Ocean Rodeo Crave, which is, you can see it's for freestyle and wave, but it's more of a high performance kite. It's getting closer to that sort of high performance, bigger jumps, faster turning sort of shape. And then we've got the Roam, which is actually a wave kite, and it's sort of, you know, more stable, easier to water relaunch, things like that. And so when you're looking at the different kite shapes, different kite models, the number one thing that you really need to sort of think about is what is it that you're trying to achieve with kite surfing. So what type of discipline are you going to be doing? Are you going to be all about the twin tips? Are you going to be all about riding waves? Are you going to be just free riding around? Are you going to get into foiling? So what is it that you're sort of looking at getting into, because that might guide you on what type of shape that you need. If it's your very first day kind of thing, you're just getting into it, you want to sort of move closer to that free ride, nice stable type of kite. Don't go for the high performance. Even if you think you might use it in the end, even if you really want to get into unhook tricks and things, definitely don't get a sea kite, because what it will happen is it just slows your learning curve. Basically, the kite teaches you a lot of lessons, if you will, right? My old kites used to teach me a lot of lessons, because if you make a mistake, bang, you get slapped, right? You really have to be actively flying it, and I found that actually slowed me down. Even though I thought I would want that high performance kite in the end, it slowed down my progression because it wasn't forgiving enough for me to try different things when I was learning. So you really want to sort of, I would say, find something nice and stable that easy to relaunch, easy to fly, easy to launch and land, right? That's really going to help you. So again, it's going to depend on what you're trying to achieve, but at the same time, try and stay in that sort of learning, free ride, all-rounder type of kite, because that will help you in the long run. Okay, so now let's talk about choosing a kite brand. We ride on Ocean Rodeo, we ride ride engine harnesses, and we absolutely love that equipment. Of course, we're going to give them a thumbs up. So if you've got the option to ride these brands in your area, then I'd definitely look into that. But I'd say that generally speaking, what you want to look for, or the best way maybe to get into the sport in your local area, is to actually go and see what they're selling at the local shops or what the local riders are riding, because if you're getting into it, they'll be able to give you tips on different kite shapes, models, years, you know, all this sort of all the things that might be very specific to a certain type of kite brand. If you're hanging out with people that are riding that already, then you'll learn things that might make it a bit easier. The number one thing really, in my opinion, is to get a reputable brand, something that you know has a good build quality, something that you know is not going to break out there in the water, things like that. So you're sort of looking at those top brands for that reliability as well. You might pay a little bit more, but it's worth it in the long run. Less repairs and definitely less risk of you know, swimming around out there in the ocean. So now let's talk about choosing your kite size. You can see we've got two kites here. We've got a 10 meter kite and an 8-meter kite. So kites are sized in square meters, and the bigger the kite, the more power it has. So typically what you do is you ride bigger kites in lighter wind and you ride smaller kites in stronger wind, and that matches so you can handle the kite in whatever those wind conditions are. So generally speaking, if you're going to buy a quiver of kites, which typically ends up being what you have to do because you really want to get out there, so you need different size kites for those different wind strengths. What a general sort of size range might be for someone like me in around that 76, 77 kilograms is I would want an 8-meter, a 10-meter, and a 12-meter. That range would really handle most of the wind conditions that I would kite. And if you're lighter than me, then you might want to size down a little bit. So you might want a 6, 8, and 10. And if you're heavier than me, then you might want to size up a little bit. So you might be riding a 9, an 11, and a 13, or even up to a 14. So depending on your weight, the bigger sizes you might ride. If you're just going to get one kite, I can tell you that from our experience flying all around the world, kiting in lots of different situations, lots of different wind strengths and lots of beaches, what we've found is that the number one kite that we use is the 9 and the 10. So that size is really the most common, in my opinion. Your local area might be completely different to that. It might blow 30 knots every day and you're not going to be riding a 10-meter. But in general, that's sort of the general size. Get a 9 or a 10. Francis rides sort of the 8 and the 9 a lot. I sort of ride the 9 and the 10 a lot. So that's, Francis is lighter than me. So if you're lighter than me, then you might want to size down to an 8. That might be your most typical kite. But that's generally sort of where it's at. So if you're wondering, what should I get, a 12-meter? Should I get a 5-meter? Typically, you want to stick around that 9 to 10 meter, I would say, for most areas. But again, go down to your local spot, go to your local shop and say, what are most people flying on most days? For my weight, what should I be flying? That's going to help a lot as well. So look, there's some tips, some basic knowledge about buying your first setup. And in part 2, we're going to dive into should you get new or used gear, some of the cost comparisons, what you might be looking to spend, things like that. We'll give you some more tips. So we'll see you there.